So that's how the book begins. And now I want to take you back to 1965. And I was just coming out of 5th grade. This is from a story in a book called Pieta. And the larger chapter is about a trip that we took to New York here. My mother loaded us in the car, my sisters and I, because Michelangelo's Pieta was at the New York World's Fair, 1964-65. And being good Catholics, we had to go see it, even if it meant driving 800 miles from Michigan. But on the way, she decided to take us to Washington, D.C. And this is what transpired. When I finished 5th grade in the summer of 1965, my mother loaded my sisters and me into our Buick and drove us to our nation's capital for our summer vacation. While the other kids in the neighborhood got to go up north, or to scout camp, or to Tot Lot, we were forced to see the original documents of the Founding Fathers. The first flag sewn by Betsy Ross, the plane that Charles Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic. We took the FBI tour of the Department of Justice, and we had our picture taken in front of the Iwo Jima statue, and we knelt and prayed in Arlington at the grave of our fallen Catholic president. We traipsed from one end of Pennsylvania Avenue to the other, climbed all 896 steps of the Washington Monument, and paid a visit to our congressman to shake his hand and let him know that we'd be voters someday. And it was while I was there, inside the Capitol building, that I found myself separated from my mother and sisters and our cousin Patricia. We were on our way to sit in the Senate gallery as the senators were deliberating a bill that would provide free health care for all the old people in America. But I got distracted by the statues of the senators, especially one Zachariah Chandler, the senator from Michigan in the 1800s. I was consumed with history and the story of the Republican Party and how it formed in Michigan, and what a great party it was. The party of Lincoln, the party to end slavery, a party of conservatives. Conservatives believed in conserving their money, believed in not spending money that they didn't have. Conserving our air, our water, God's gifts, our natural resources on this earth. Conservation. That's what conservative meant. Eventually it dawned on me that I was all alone and on my own. My mother and sisters were nowhere in sight. I began to panic. Where did they go? Why did they leave me here? I may have thought I was a smart kid, but I had no idea where I was, where they were, or how I would find them. At age 11, the Capitol Rotunda seemed like its own planet to me, or worse, a giant white marble vortex spinning madly and sucking everything into it. I tried to catch my breath and began walking quickly in whatever direction seemed like the way out. I somehow ended up on the Senate side of the building and went down the staircase, looking frantically for any sign of my family. Realizing I was getting nowhere, I bolted through a pair of elevator doors just as they were closing. Inside the elevator, I began to cry. There was a lone man in the back corner, leaning against the railing, his face covered by the newspaper that he was reading. He heard my sniffling and put the paper down to see what the commotion was all about. As I had been properly schooled in all things political and Catholic, I instantly recognized this man. He was the junior senator from New York, Robert Francis Kennedy. "What's wrong, young man?" he said in a voice that was comforting enough to stop the tears. After all, no one had called me a young man before. "I lost my mom," I said sheepishly. "Well, that can't be good. Let's see if we can find her." I won't try to do a Bobby Kennedy accent. "Thank you," I said. "Where are you from?" "Michigan, near Flint." "Oh yes, my brother loved that Labor Day parade. Big parade." The doors of the elevator opened and he put his arm on my shoulder and escorted me to the nearest Capitol police officer. "Seems this young man from Michigan," he turned to me. "What's your name, son?" "Michael." "More?" "Michael has lost his mother, and perhaps we can help him." "Yes, sir, Senator, we'll take care of it." The officer told the senator he'll handle the matter from here on so that the senator can proceed with much more important duties. "Well, I'll stay here for a minute or two and make sure he's okay." I stood there thinking how stupid did I have to be to get lost, and now I was holding up Bobby Kennedy in the business of the United States Senate so that everybody could go search for my mommy. Jeez, oh Pete, was I embarrassed. "How old are you, Mike?" "Can I call you Mike?" Kennedy asked. "I'm 11. "This is my first time in the Capitol," I offered, hoping to make myself seem less like an idiot. "Well, you've got your first ride on the Senate elevator. That almost makes you a senator." The Irish in him had now kicked in, and he flashed that Kennedy grin. I smiled too and joined in. "Hey, you never know," I said, and then wanted to quickly retract this wise-ass remark. I think, yeah, that's okay. This man is quickly going through their standards and practices. The wise-ass, I think, yes, we can say that. "Well," said Kennedy, "we've got two good Democrats from Michigan already, Senators McNamara and Hart." I jumped in as if I were on a quiz show. "You know your senators. Very good and promising." "We've got his mother," a voice squawked across the police radio. "Stay there. She's coming." "Well, it seemed everything worked out okay," proclaimed the senator from New York. "Good luck, young man, and never lose sight of your mother." And with that, he was gone, before I even had a chance to thank him or wish him well, or recite for him my favorite passages from his brother's inaugural address. Anyways, it goes on to say we went into the gallery, and they were discussing, on one side of the, I think it was the Senate, they were discussing Medicare, passing the Medicare bill, and on the other side, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. From watching the evening news and being taught to read the daily newspaper at a young age, I knew that what they called colored people were being unfairly treated, even killed. A few months earlier, in March of 1965, a white housewife from Detroit, Viola Luiso, upset at what she'd been seeing on television regarding the savage treatment of black people, made an impromptu decision to head down to Selma, Alabama, to march with the Reverend Martin Luther King. I knew King to be the Negro man in charge of the Civil Rights Movement, and in the town where I lived, his name was rarely mentioned, and when it was, it usually had other words attached to it, none pleasant. Mrs. Liuzzo, a mother of 5 children, was brutally murdered by the Ku Klux Klan while volunteering as a driver back and forth to Selma in the demonstration. It was a shock to most of Michigan, and when I heard it being discussed by Jesse the barber, he informed those who were getting their hair cut that day that she was found with some nigga boy in the car, a married woman up to no good, sticking her puss in where it didn't belong. Jesse's barbershop was the place you went to for enlightenment in my town. And the place was always full. Jesse was a short man with a short haircut. And there was always a pair of scissors or a long razor in his hand. This was problematic as he wore thick lens glasses, the kind the legally blind wear. And it frightened me when I sat in his chair as he held court, the sharp instruments being used to make various punctuation points in the air. I asked my mother why the senators, or the people on the floor, were saying they didn't want some people to vote. "Well, some people don't want some people to vote," my mother said, trying to protect us from the fact that even United States senators could think like the men who killed Viola Luiso. The next day, we took an overly long car ride to Monticello, the home of Thomas Jefferson. This was located deep in Virginia, the real South, as my mother called it. On the way back from Monticello, we pulled off the highway for gas and a trip to the restroom. I walked with my mother around the back of the station, where there were 2 doors. One was marked white, and the other colored, though it looked like someone had tried to scrape that last word off unsuccessfully. I stood and stared at these 2 signs, and although I knew what it meant, I wanted to hear my mother's explanation of it. "What is this?" I asked. She looked at the signs and was silent for a moment. "You know what it is. Just go in there and do your business and get out." I went into the colored bathroom, and she went into the whites. When we came out, she led me back to the car. Get in there and stay with your sisters. She then headed into the gas station with the kind of walk we three kids knew meant that heads would roll. We cranked our heads out the window hoping to hear what she was saying to the man at the counter. But all that was available to us was the tight-lipped look on her face and the few motions she made with her index finger. He too made a few gestures, including a shrug of his shoulders. She came back outside to the car and got in and said nothing. What were you doing? I asked. Just mind your business, she said, cutting me off, and lock your doors. This would be the only time in my life I would hear such a demand when in the vicinity of all white people. We never learned what she said to the man or what he told her, and in years later, I'd like to think that she'd given him a piece of her mind for her children having to witness such immorality in the United States that she loved. He might have told her that they just hadn't gotten around to taking it down yet, or he had tried. The Civil Rights Act outlawing such things had just passed months earlier. Or maybe he told her to get her nigger-loving ass out of there. Or maybe she was just complaining the ladies' room was out of toilet paper. I always meant to ask her, but didn't. She was no Viola Luiso, and for that, I guess, I was thankful, as I liked my mother being alive.